Have any of you guys ever thought about what happens if somebody calls you and says, I'm not going to make it home for supper, or don't come home? That's what this video is about, is this bag right here. This is a don't come home bag. And obviously I am so uncomfortable and nervous about civil unrest of some kind or another that being prepared for such a thing is a really great comfort to me. And whether that's placebo or not, I don't particularly care. Placebo is medicine, and we have tons and tons of medical data proving this fact. And so if this thing here is placebo effect, then it's a relatively cheap, harmless way to have placebo in the form of this bag that I bring everywhere I go. So I'm going to go through what's in my bag and what I did to put it together, because I spent very little money putting this together, and it has paid for itself in medicinal placebo many times over since I got it. We'll start with, here is a plain Jane Molly ammo pouch from a surplus store. Got 3 magazines in it. I don't know if you guys have ever bought surplus before, but if you get it from the right place and you get stuff that's not particularly ergonomic or, outdated, this can be very, very inexpensive. And so that's what I've done here. A lot of people ask why I'm always out there playing Army Man. Well, it's not exactly Army Man to me. It's training and getting muscles conditioned. I don't know if any of you have ever walked around in the forest a whole ton off of, regular hiking trails. For one, it's already something different than just going for a long walk on flat ground. Go try to do it carrying your gear. It's different yet again. Go try to do it being as quiet as you can, and it's different yet again. So, I'm out there with my wife trying to make myself feel better about the possibility for survival in the case of a disastrous situation, which is good placebo. And on top of that, surplus gear is often very inexpensive, and so you get a bunch of people who aren't made of money out there looking like they're playing Army Man. That's just the state of things. If they made them in blaze orange, I probably wouldn't buy it anyway, because olive drab, camouflage, and flat dark earth, they really serve a purpose. So all of this stuff is from a surplus store. Some of it is true surplus. Some of it is just knockoff brand stuff that you find in a surplus store. This stuff is called Condor, the brand. This is knockoff gear. It's very inexpensive compared to, like Fox River Tactical, or I don't know the brand names by heart, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you can go spend easily $300 on a good pack. I've got an Eberlstock pack that I had to get for its utility that just costed me about 4 times as much as this. And this one I use much more often. Same thing here, Condor. And this is a Molly pack that's removable. I use this for various things. This is kind of my grab and go pack, and we're going to go through everything here one at a time. So in here I have basic individual first aid. I have lots of blood-stopping gauze, pressure-packed gauze. And this stuff is not impregnated with a clotting agent. It's just very common in the woods for us to use this for timber falling, to have it available. It's requirement in some places to have it on your person. So I can get this stuff for that price, and I keep a lot of it around because it's just cheap insurance. The rest of my first aid pack is a bunch of basic trauma and wound care, infection prevention. This gauze I get from feed stores. It's horse gauze. It's cotton, which is rare nowadays. Most of your gauze is made out of polyester, and I prefer the cotton stuff for a lot of applications. And I think you can get it for like $1. It comes in these big rolls and you can saw it down with scissors and make it a size that you want. Steri strips, suture kits are a great idea. Pretty much anything, basic Band-Aid, wound care, anything to prevent infection out there. And I have to speak from experience. I've treated some devastating wounds with nothing but plain old antibiotic ointment and clean water and changing bandages regular. If you guys are inexperienced at that kind of thing and you're a panic and run to the hospital guy, I can tell you from experience you can really heal some bad wounds with basic gear. Next in here I've got a roll of plastic garbage sacks. These are household kitchen size trash bags. And you never know if you have somebody who has a traumatic wound and you don't want to roll them out on the dirt, you can lay these out and use them as a makeshift sterile or more sterile, a clean area to do work on somebody. You can make ponchos, you can make a makeshift shelter. There's just so many reasons to have plain garbage bags. I think there's 4 or 5 of them in here and they don't take up a ton of space. Everything I keep wrapped in zippy bags because they just keep the water out. I live in a really wet area and these zippy bags, they'll wear through eventually, but if I keep up, I go through my gear pretty regular, and so I just kind of keep an eye on it. I've got nitrile gloves here in case I need to treat someone and keep my icky dirty hands off of their wound, or in case I need to grab a hold of something that I don't need to be leaving parts of myself behind. I think it's a good idea. Can't hurt you to have them. In here I've got marking ribbon. I've got a butane lighter with some electrical tape on it. Electrical tape is super useful, and I learned from some guys on the YouTube, on the internet, any place you can get a flat spot and wrap some tape, it's probably a good idea, and electrical tape's the tape I use more than anything. So I keep a butane lighter handy, some earplugs. This marking ribbon, it's useful for many things. Where I live, there's tons of forestry ribbon hung in the woods everywhere, so it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb as much as you think. And if you don't know what else ribbon can be used for, just get on the YouTube and look up Flaming Rock. In this pouch is also a basic fire starter kit. This is the cheapest fire starter that they sold at, I don't know, Sportsman's Warehouse or Cabela's or whatever. I just spray painted it. It was pretty shiny. And the kit has a ferro rod and some jute cloth and I think a striker. It's a pretty basic kit. I've tried it. It worked okay. What I did is I put a little tube of Aquaphor, which is just Vaseline petroleum jelly, and some of those polyester gauze pads. I found that if you kind of douse the gauze pads in that jelly and then strike on it, it just really makes a long flame that you can get some small stuff piled on. I just thought it was prudent. The thing works. It's pretty easy to make a fire with it. It's not a chore, and I think it's useful. In this pouch, I've got a quick access writing instrument, so that way someone who's behind me, near me, or maybe myself, I can get it out of here and just scribble on something quickly. I've got a cloth, and this cloth is just if you need to wipe down a gun, wipe down your face, wipe down anything. It's just a piece of old t-shirt that I cut into a cloth. I keep this P52 wrapped up in the cloth for those reasons. Just a basic can opener that takes up very little space. I got less likelihood of cutting myself on it than a P38. I don't care for P38s, so these P52s are really nice. Some gun oil. It's not full, but it's enough to get the job done for a few days. And then this is a Write in the Rain pen. These are really durable pens, and they'll write in pretty much any conditions. It's like a spaceman pen. So this Molly's pretty nice. It comes right off of here, and if you need this pack in an emergency, you can pop it right off. Look at one-handed even. You can get this thing out of here. I keep a basic hunting knife on this thing as well. This is just a Puma knife that I got given to me by my dad. Keep in mind, a ton of the stuff out of this pack is out of my hunting gear, and I don't really have a hunting pack anymore. I just have this. So a bunch of this is loaner stuff from hunting gear that's already been used. It's already kind of proved itself as useful, durable, good enough for government work kind of a thing. And so instead of having a hunting pack, this thing lives on my emergency pack. I like to keep some bootlace, string, leather cord, tape, anywhere I can kind of get some and it doesn't really stand out like crazy or doesn't get in my way. These are just kind of, they freely dangle. It's just good to have in case you need it. I think I've never been in a situation where I needed a bootlace and I've been sad that I had it somewhere. It just is, it doesn't hurt anything. It's light to carry and it's useful. Okay, in this pouch I've got some basic cold weather gloves. These are very inexpensive gloves. I've got tattoos, and so the consideration to cover up tattoos is a pretty good one. To cover up the markings that define you as a person that grow on your fingers is pretty useful. They're not the best for anything. They're not the worst. So they're the only gloves I have. I'm not a big glove wearing person. I probably need to get better at that. I think mechanics gloves are what all the high speed guys wear. These are just the cheapest thing they sold, I think at Costco or something. I got them for Christmas. Probably not so good that they're black. Spray paint works great on cloth if it's something you're crazy about. I think it's good to have a pair of gloves. I also have a pair of safety glasses. I rarely wear safety glasses, but boy, if you think you're going to be in some trouble, it'd probably be useful to put them on. I've seen people shoot at safety glasses with a shotgun and the pellets don't all go through, or sometimes none of them go through. Go ask, Kentucky Ballistics about safety glasses. I'm pretty sure he got his life saved by a pair of plain old 3M glasses. These are about as premium of ones as I could find because I already don't like glasses, and so I think it helps, but these are just a pair. A life straw. I think it's really important. I live in an area where there's a ton of water, so carrying water isn't really a consideration, not even in summertime. And so, but getting a clean drink without catching the runs is pretty important to me. I've got a large cloth, like a scarf. These are very generic. I see this same pattern all over the place at surplus stores, at Walmart stores, on internet shelves. Like, I see this same pattern, and so that's pretty useful. It breaks up your shape. It's got a little pattern on it. It's got some danglies on the end to break up some more shape. But the bottom line is they're going to say, well, what was the guy wearing? Like, well, a green cloth wrapped around his face like a scarf or a balaclava. Well, what was the pattern? It's like, well, it was that pattern. It's like, yeah, you and everybody else, we all have the same pattern. That's great. Perfect. So just generic stuff sometimes is better than being super duper high speed identifiable. As if you have the same gear as a lot of people, it can really help you out in a situation where you need it. I've got another Sharpie marker, got another pen, and a Write in the Rain tablet. This is probably one of the more expensive name brand things in here. $17.50 Write in the Rain tablet. I could really do without it being bright yellow, but is what it is. Also, there's an envelope with a tiny bit of cash in there. In a pinch, it's probably good to have some cash. Okay, up here I've got the basic knife sharpener out of my old hunting kit. It's just a Smith's two-sided diamond stone. One's like a fine coarse and the other one's like a fine diamond. If any of you guys have ever butchered an animal, if you've ever just boned out something, a knife can get dull pretty fast if you nick bones, which, I'm not the professional butcher. I just have been doing it a long time. But I can sharpen the heck out of a knife pretty fast, so I find this to be a useful piece of kit out of my hunting pack that I've used almost every single time I've ever killed an animal. I've ended up using this, so that's a useful piece of kit to me. And another lighter. The reason for this is because this pack is removable. And if this gets lost, dumped, left behind or something, having fire might save your life. It might save mine, at least. I know how cold I get. I'm pretty susceptible to cold. I'm not the biggest guy. I'm also not the scrawniest, but I just having an ability to make a fire is important enough to put it in twice for me. In this pouch, I've got a little bit of sustainability. I've got a pair of wool socks, a long sleeved shirt. It's pretty nondescript. It's not camouflaged. It's a common shirt to see around. And same reason, I've got tattoos. I think it's good to be able to cover those up, to change your clothes, have clean clothes, etc. There's many reasons why to take up that space with some of that. I've also got this water bottle. It's just a 1 liter container with a purification filter in it. I've never had to use it. At least I can fill up at some place and probably make it to the next creek or stream before I die of thirst. A pair of regular seeing glasses. I have a prescription for glasses, and so I think it's important to keep a spare pair around. And a space blanket. This is just one of the first things they taught me in hunter safety when I was a kid, is to have one of these in your pack. It can save your life. And this space blanket was very inexpensive. We got them in like a 4-pack or something, and I think they costed like $5 or $10 off of Amazon. Okay, here in this final pouch, this is the money pouch here. I've got a couple more loaded magazines, a couple more loaded magazines, and a couple more loaded magazines. And these mags, I think it's prudent for a guy to load up some magazines with a set of nitrile gloves on, wipe them down with alcohol first, put the gloves on, and load them, and then put them straight into a zippy bag. And I just think it's prudent. If you guys think about it long enough, I'm sure you can figure out why. Got another spare shirt in here, t-shirt, pair of skivvies, another pair of skivvies, some nylon cord. I don't think there's ever been a time similar to bootlace that I was like, man, I really need to tie something down, secure something, that I was sad that I had too much rope laying around. And then there's a 72-hour freeze-dried food supply in there. The whole point of this bag is I am not a survival expert, nor do I want to take the time to become a survival expert. But the difference between making her the first 3 days or being able to hold out for a cooler time to get into your house and get out with something important, just that first 3 days to get yourself out of town or into town, whatever the issue is, I think it could save your life. And even if it doesn't, even if the necessity never arises, we've got a really, really affordable placebo right here that makes me feel better, that I carry it everywhere. I've got it. I'm a lot more survivable with it than I am without it, and placebo is cheap. The last thing is something which I learned from the late Paul Harrell, which is program compliance. The placebo doesn't do you any good if you don't bring it with you everywhere you go. And so I do that, and it makes me feel a lot better knowing that I have it. It makes me a lot more aware of the amount of vigilance that I should have on the daily. Because as you engage in program compliance, the amount of responsibility that hangs on you causes you to behave in a different manner. So that comes with carrying a firearm. I concealed carry every place I go without exception. And there's an amount of responsibility that comes along with that, with knowing that if I ever need to use my handgun in self-defense, that I am going to end up in court and be heavily scrutinized. And one of the first things that always gets said is Joe Blow should have known better. And what was he even doing there? And so the fact that I know that that will be the scrutiny on me for carrying a weapon and having to use it causes me to behave in such a manner while I'm carrying it, which is extra vigilance, extra awareness, staying out of dangerous areas, and a lot of times preventing issues before it ever becomes a problem. And I think that there's a lot to be said for program compliance, and also the amount of good behavior that comes along with responsibility. When someone's aware of the responsibility that's on their shoulders, they tend to behave in a manner that preserves the integrity of their credibility for that responsibility. Word salad, but you can probably read between the lines of what I'm trying to say. Although you might not have everything in the bag, I didn't have everything in the bag. It took me a while to put everything together because I'm not made of money, but it's the little things, like making sure that you have more than a half a tank of fuel in your rigs. All of my rigs have over a half a tank in them most of the time, or at least one of them. And having some food put away that's like a 30-day supply, because if I can just get home, get snuck in, and leave with my 30-day food supply, then I can hide in a culvert pipe for 30 days, Saddam Hussein style. It's cheap insurance, and the opportunity might never arise to use it in a bad situation. I might be long gone and someone else will ransack it. Maybe a good person will get it and use it for a good cause. It just doesn't hurt to have placebo that makes you feel more good about a bad situation, the same as training. You don't have to be the best shot ever. You just have to be less bad than the guy who's trying to hurt you. And so I post training videos that, people think it's a joke. People think that I'm a joke. More power to you. I just want to be less bad than someone who's trying to hurt me. And that is also a placebo. It makes you feel a little more confident, a little more good, a little less fearful in a world of people that many of them would like to have what belongs to you for free. And it's a dangerous world to live in a lot of ways. And I think that it is very, very cheap to find a little bit of comfort and a little less worry in a dangerous world. And lastly is carry these things in the woods. Go walk around with the weight on your back, carry your rifle, carry your handgun, exercise, be prepared. I think in a time of disaster, or if you're preparing for disaster, super duper lean isn't exactly the best. I think having a couple extra meals on your person in the form of a layer around the waist isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you need to have the cardiovascular fitness in order to carry those extra few pounds around. And those extra few pounds, they equate to 5 to 10 days of free meals that you don't even have to carry or keep refrigerated. So keep that in mind too. Are there some things that I don't have that I should? And the answer is yes. I think a boar snake would be very, very useful to get in here. I absolutely know that tourniquets in my individual first aid are very, very useful. I personally, from my experience as a timber faller, was taught for a long time that the inseams of pants and various things can be cut into tourniquets. I live in an area where there's no shortage of sticks to use as twisters on those tourniquets. Is it the best option? No, but it is an option for me because I don't have tourniquets and I have more important things currently to spend my money on. However, it is very foolish of me to not have tourniquets. So it's one of those things. I'm not trying to argue with you guys that my way is better. It's just I don't have them. However, I have considered a option which is maybe a little less useful, but still useful nonetheless. I also don't have radio equipment in here. In the region where I live, CB radios, citizen band radios, are very, very common. I've got a citizen band radio in all of my pickups, and I can reach several miles with a citizen band. It's very commonly used. Everybody will be listening in, but if you've got code with people who you know are going to be listening at a certain time of the day, before you can even be direction found, you can get onto a CB radio that's in any yard in the entire region, get on the citizen band and say the eagle has landed, and only the people who you know are going to know what that means. So citizen band radios, I don't carry radios. Do I think it would be useful to carry radios? Yes. Do I have them? No, I don't, and I don't have the room. I'm very short of space. But it's another thing. I recognize there's other considerations. The main point here is that this isn't a sustainability, long-term fighting a guerrilla war bag. This is a get the heck out of town bag. or a get yourself into town to get help bag. So this is mine. I don't really know if this is everything that a guy could think of, but I'm open to suggestions, and as far as prescription placebo goes, this is it for me.